All right, Samuel, great to have you.
Thanks for having me. Super excited. I think it's actually my second ever English podcast I've done.
Okay, everything else has been German.
Yeah, so super excited.
We have a Danish holiday today, so it's a quiet day in the office. I'm actually at the home office, so it's a great time to do a podcast with someone like you. And I just saw on your LinkedIn that you're the CEO, but not the chief executive officer, but the chief experimentation officer, and I really like that title. So, could you perhaps, Samuel, just give a quick brief to like your title, obviously, but the
Yeah,
agency Drip, where you come from.
yeah. So I'm Samuel. I'm one of the founders of the Drip Agency. We are a full-service A/B testing and CRO agency. And yeah, funny with the title. So my official title is Chief Experimentation Officer and not CEO. So I actually stepped down as a CEO, I think January 1st this year. And yeah, we started Drip around. It's been 5 years already, man. That's crazy. Like started out straight after high school. Then we're also gonna like talk about some tests from Snox. We met the founder from Snox, Johannes Kliesch, and back then, like in 2018, 2019, we didn't have money to like make a living, so we slept in the office for 3 months, and that's how the agency got started. And
And
since
now you're
then,
like now you're 45 people almost, right?
yeah, now we're like I keep forgetting it, like 45, 46-ish, something like that. Pretty much doubling in size every year since we started, which is crazy. And no sign of slowing down. And yeah, like now I have all the time to create content, talk about testing, and just like share what I know, since I don't have the responsibilities of the CEO. So it was probably the best decision of my life ever so far.
Yeah. And that's also where I found you basically, as it was LinkedIn. I saw this guy, Samuel Hess, and he had like 30,000 followers on LinkedIn. He did all these posts about conversion rate optimization. I was like, I have to make a sort of a breach with the normal format here and get him on this podcast because I really like the content you're posting. So big shout out to you there. Just to get us started, we're obviously talking about conversion rate optimization. This is your sort of go-to. But like, I'm curious, having run an agency myself for 5 years, like why CRO? Like you could do a digital marketing agency, you could go 360, you could do social media, you could do all these different types of, but you're highly focused on the CRO discipline. So just first of all, why was that?
Yeah, pretty funny story. So we actually never intended to start an agency in the first place. So I have a co-founder, Fabi, and me. When we started out, like we wanted to have our own online shop, so we actually started selling like stuff like bracelets, bags, phone cases that were made out of like coffee actually and like flowers. And then at one point we started to sell jeans. First we dropshipped them, then we produced them in Portugal. But yeah, like at the point when we started producing in Portugal, we never like studied how to develop products. At that point, our parents were like, okay, like either you have to finance yourself or you have to go to college. So that's like how we met Johannes and then how we started the agency. And like the one thing he told us back then was like, okay, you guys are good at optimizing online shops. Was like maybe a spoiler for that. Back then, all the online shops we had, they had like conversion rates between 8 to 12%, which is like insanely high. So we knew we were good at that, and like we weren't good at like calculating unit economics and all that stuff. So then we focused like on optimizing the Snox online shop, and then Johannes made us some intros to some other people, and that's like how the agency grew. And we did think about like going broader, like adding more services, but then we again thought, okay, CRO is like already so complex. We have like we're gonna talk about that. You have so many different disciplines to go into it. And we want to be the best at it. So that's why we're like, okay, like we're not gonna do any development. Like I mean, we're like developing a test, but like we're not gonna do like any regular Shopify development. We're not gonna do like any Facebook marketing or like any email marketing. We're just gonna focus on being the best at testing.
And it seems like to have worked out, just looking out from outwards and in. So awesome. And I think in terms of like conversion rate optimization, I feel like there's like two overarching like sides or like schools of thought. Either you're like extremely like experimental, you want to go very granular, you want to run a lot of tests, like very like hyper focused on like minor tweaks. And then on the other end, you're like, okay, you really shouldn't focus that much into it. You should rather focus on, as you say, unit economics, getting the right source of traffic. Like you need the 80-20 rule, but beyond that is just wasting a lot of time. So like, I know that neither is probably right, but like, how do you see like the CRO discipline in general? Like how big of a focus should it be? And for whom perhaps?
Yeah, so that's like, I'm getting roasted for that all the time because I say it depends. That's like my favorite answer regarding that question. But yeah, like if you're a small brand and you're like, let's say making like 100, 200K a month, like then your main problem is not your online store. Like then your main problem is like getting people to your site, figuring out what channels work, like what's profitable for you. So in that case, like if you want to test something, you have to go very bold. But then like on the other hand, let's say, because like we're working with some enterprises that make billions a year, like for them, like minor tweaks like 0.5%, like 0.5% change could be like 10, 15 million in additional revenue per year, or like less per year. So then you're getting like, okay, for these companies, it makes sense to test everything. But then like for a smaller company, if they like, let's say you're making 1.5 to 2 million a year, to be able to detect a change of like 0.5%, a test would need to run for, let's say, maybe 6 to 8 months. And then like you're killing the speed. And it's like, as a startup founder, you probably know that as well, like speed is everything, especially in the beginning. So that's like how I would look at it, like just from a business perspective. Okay, like can we actually test it? Like, do we have the resources? If it makes financial sense, then you should go granular or as granular as you can go. But then if you're getting to the point where like, okay, like 1% in uplift could be like 1 million per year, like then obviously you should start testing everything very granularly.
Okay, so in other words, like size does matter when it comes
Yeah.
to this thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
size matters regarding SEO. Like, unfortunately, for testing it does matter, but like for the other things, and that's what I think most people forget about CRO. Like everyone wants these like quick hacks and social proof tactics, etc. But like the true thing about experimentation testing and CRO is like customer understanding, and like no matter how big or small you are, like you always should like put the customer first and think, okay, what does the customer actually need? So like even if you're small, like small clients and big clients do the same thing. Like they start doing surveys, like they ask the customers, why did they buy? Where did they like who did they compare it with? What happened that they was like starting to look for the product? So yeah, it matters to be like for testing size, but it does not matter regarding doing research.
Okay. You mentioned initially that you had like some very, very good cases with like 8 to 12% like conversion rates. Like, is there some benchmark today? Like, how does the landscape look like in terms of conversions? Like, if I was an e-commerce business, whether I was in Denmark or in Germany, like how should I look at this?
Yeah, like conversion rate, like back then, do have to say like our AOVs were like mainly around 35, 40 euros. Like, and back then you didn't like, I don't know, we had customer acquisition costs from like, I don't know, 5 to 7 euros, which is like nothing. Like if you think about today, which is like usually in the 20s at least.
Yeah.
So yeah, usually the higher average order values, like the lower the conversion rate is. So the metric we actually track most of the time is the average revenue per user. And I would
ARPU?
say like, yeah, ARPU, exactly.
Yeah.
And I would say like benchmark of what's good, like what we see on average is like between 3 euros and 3 euros 50 of like the brands that really scale. But like also depends. Like we had a client that was selling like tractors and stuff like that, and then obviously like your conversion rate is gonna like be very very low, but like your ARP is gonna be like insane because like if someone purchases a tractor for like 50,000 euros,
Okay.
that's a lot.
So maybe conversion rate isn't always the right thing to look at. As you mentioned, ARPU or average revenue per user might be more valid in terms of CRO in general, because you get a better understanding of how you actually increase the revenue like per user or per like visitor, right?
Yeah, exactly. So like conversion rate, like one example I say a lot, like you can get your conversion rate probably like to 100% if you make your products for free. Like is it gonna be good for your business? Like probably not. Like maybe as a one-time campaign, but if you keep like doing that and keep giving away free stuff, your business is gonna die. Like in the end, you wanna like make profit with your business. So we advise people to look at the revenue per user because that's like just a much better metric than only looking at the AOV or like the conversion rate separately.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, let's get into the nitty gritty. I want to go through what to test, how to test, some of the tests that you've run. So if we just start in the top, you mentioned initially like there are some things that e-commerce businesses like low-hanging fruits that might make sense to start with. So let's say I'm an e-commerce owner. I've been at it for a couple of years. I have a couple of million euros in revenue, so it's going rather good. But now is the time to really double down on like actually increasing our conversion rates, or whether it's ARPU or some third metric. So where do you start, like from ground zero? Like where would you look to begin?
Yeah, so the first thing is like size again, like figuring out, okay, like am I big enough to test? So the first thing you actually do is like you're trying to figure out, okay, if I want to test, um, how many people do I need to measure effects? Like let's say I'm like a shop with like 20 million in revenue a year. Then like what I'm trying to do is like, okay, I'm gonna think about what effect like from a business side makes sense to detect, and it might be like 2%. That's like around 400,000 a year. That makes sense to detect. And then you're like, okay, like the smallest effect I want to detect is 4%. And then like there are like a bunch of calculators out there, either for the conversion rate or ARPU, and you can calculate, okay, how many users do I need like to run a test first? And that's like the first thing you do, and you're like, okay, then you know, okay, it's gonna take me like 4, 6, 8 weeks to get results. Then the next thing you do, you start with research, and that's like something you should do like all the time. Either like even if you're like a small brand, like doing 500-600K a year, you always should do research. So research means like first of all, you're gonna like look in your web analytics, and you're like, okay, where do people drop off? Like very simple. Like you're gonna look at your product pages, homepage, entire funnel, and you're just gonna figure out, okay, where's like the biggest potential that we could optimize.
And how do you look into that? Is that like using heat maps? Is it like bounce rates? Is it everything? Like how would you do it? How would you do it?
So it's like two different ways to do it. The one way is like with Google Analytics data, and like we call that the quantitative data because it's just like numbers, big numbers, and you can be like, okay, what's the bounce rate on my homepage, bounce rate on my product page, or like the exit rate. So that's the first thing, and that like is answering you what is happening on your shop. And then the other things do just like coming up with like heat maps or session recordings. That's the why part, because like what's the case is the numbers in Google Analytics will never tell you why people are doing something. Like they're only showing you, okay, your product page sucks. Like 80% of people exit here, like maybe only 10% are putting something to their cart. And then you're like, okay, I do not get why. And then you might figure out, okay, if they are going to a specific section on the site, like you also can look that up in like GA data. If they go to a specific section, like the drop off rate is going to be higher. And then what you can do is like you're going to use heat maps, survey, session recording. You're going to try to figure out what's happening in that specific section where people are dropping off. And then let's say you are like your fashion store. Most of the time, people will drop off either because they don't find anything that they like the product's just like not their taste, or the size. That's like the two biggest things in fashion. And so let's say for size, one thing that often happens, users are getting to the size selectors. And then they're like, okay, I like the product, but I don't know how it fits. And then like what you sometimes see, like if you set up the events, people are starting to switch from like, let's say S to M, M to S, and like they're unsure. And then at that point, for example, you could be, okay, when people are clicking like 3 to 4 times on a size selector, the drop-off rate is higher. Like that could indicate, okay, that's like an insecurity. And then what you can do is you think about, okay, at that specific moment, what can I do to like increase the trust like towards the user that he's going to choose the right size. And then, for example, one thing we tested for Snox, like a underwear fashion brand from Germany, we displayed like a small model that was like, okay, like if you're unsure if that size fits, if it's very good, like 97% of customers like liked it and didn't return it. In case it doesn't fit, you can return it for free. So like in that second, what the user has like so many questions, like, okay, if it's not going to fit, how's the return process? Like we proactively just push the message. And that's how you test. Like you're trying to figure out, okay, what's the decision problem, and then you're trying to come up with solutions to change the behavior and like change the decision. And that's like also important to know, like there's no red buy button in a human brain. Like you only can think about, okay, where are like the decision trees and like where does it break, and then you can try to optimize that. But no matter how many best practice and how many social proof or like some other behavioral like tactics you use, you're not going to increase the conversion rate to like 500 or like to 100%. It's like not going to happen.
That makes sense. It reminds me of the like when people or when businesses write like the model is 185 centimeters and they're wearing a size like medium. Like that helps really much. Like I'm rather tall, so if I don't know exactly like how tall the person is in the picture, I have no idea whether or not it will actually fit me. So like these like small, it might seem small tweaks, but it actually like helps a lot. But that totally makes sense. So you need to figure out, like, do your research, obviously figure out where there's holes in your armor, so to say, and then you try to fill those gaps. But it seems like, at least for me, when you talk about it, Samuel, it's like 6 to 8 weeks or multiple months. Like how do you actually go about this? Like
Yeah, statistics is like a question, like you can go very deep into it. That's like a very deep rabbit hole. So like the testing times, really what it comes down to is how confident you want to be that a change is actually like significant. Like statistics for beginners or like dummies, like for everyone's like listening now, statistics are pretty much there to reduce the amount of risk you take. Like you want to be sure, okay, if you change something, then you want to be confident, okay, that change actually has an impact in reality. Because like if you test something, you're like only taking a subgroup out, like a subgroup out of the entire population. And it's like important to know, like, you know, if you run an A/B test, like you're not gonna get a number like, okay, this A/B test has a 5% uplift. You're always gonna get a number like this A/B test, like 80%, like for 80%, how you say, 80% confidence, you know, okay, there's an effect. That's between 3 and 5%, stuff like that.
That makes sense. You also had a really, really good formula I actually found on your LinkedIn. You wrote like in terms of figuring out like what to test initially, which was also my question. You write something like exposure times likelihood of behavior change should be the test priority. In other words, like where in which like locations, it could be a product page, it could be a checkout page, where's the most exposure and where's the highest likelihood of where you can actually adjust the behavior of the visitors. That should be the focus area, right?
Yeah, exactly. However, that formula is also dependent on, so let's say it's like very, like with these formulas, it's very tricky. Like that's like from a very like top level view, like you want to like test what has the most exposure and like the highest likelihood of winning. The thing with like the exposure is, okay, usually like the more exposure something has, like the quicker a test can run. Except if you test on the homepage and you're measuring conversions, then like you might need a lot more people because you have a bigger sample size, because the effect's gonna be smaller. But yeah, like that's the first thing. You do the statistics. Like we probably can link, like I don't want to go too deep into that hole because like it's so complex. You probably can link like 2 or 3 articles for the people that really want to do it.
Sure.
But that's the first thing you do, and then like you calculate, okay, like how long is the test gonna run, and then how do you prioritize the test? Because I think that's what you wanted to get at. So like what you always want to run tests that have an effect. So the worst thing that can happen in CRO or testing is like you have insignificant test results. So you don't want to have a test that's like positive or negative. With the positive ones, like you're just going to implement them, you're happy that you're making money. But actually, like the really nice ones and the ones you learn the most from are the negative ones. Like obviously, like they're going to lose you money in the first place, but then you're going to be like, oh, okay. Like for example, we had this one case around 1.5 years ago. We optimized for a company that was selling gifts, and like they didn't have any social proof on their product pages. So our thought was like, okay, we're gonna put social proof on because like that's so big and like no one's like realizing how big they are. Like we put it on, the test was negative. Like no one like in the world would be like, wait, social proof can be negative. And then we started to do more research, asking the customers, and then we got the feedback. Yeah, like I want to feel special when I gift something, and I don't want to know that like 500,000 other people gifted the exact same product, like for the exact same occasion. So then you know, okay, you have to go into a different direction, like help the customers in a different way.
But that's super interesting because it's very counterintuitive, right? Because in marketing, everyone has been preaching, including myself, you need social proof, right? It's like one of the ultimate human biases when it comes to like making decisions. We're ultimately flock animals, right? So we want to do what other people are doing. But in this case, it didn't make sense. But that's really good learning, right?
Yeah.
So in terms of like making these like hypotheses, like now we have decided like perhaps like what we want to go for, what we want to test. And I noticed you also had a great framework for like making these hypotheses. Can you take us through that?
Yeah, so like coming up with a hypothesis, again, has to do a lot of research. So usually like we use a very simple hypothesis framework. It's like if we change XYZ, then metric XYZ changes because, and then we have like the entire explanation of why we think it's going to change, like based on data, based on like human psychology. But the way to come up with it is like very simple. Like you're doing all your research with heat maps, surveys, and then what we do like internally, we have like a big Airtable base, and like we just have like a tab with like all the different researches you can do, and then you put it all in there, and then at the end of the month you have like probably around 200 ideas of like that came up from research, like what you can fix. Then what you try to do in the first place, like you're gonna try to prioritize what ideas have the most impact by like adding all the research that was done and like adding all the data to the ideas, so that ideas with the most data are like going all the way to the top. And then like once you have the ideas, the way like you write the hypothesis is, okay, Let's say for that one example I said with the shoe, like with the sizing, would be pretty simple. Like hypothesis would be if we add a note that hints the user that the size that he selected is rarely returned, and in case he wants to return it as free, then the error P is going to increase, and then you like I'm going to make the explanation shorter than it is in reality, because like you're taking all the anxiety away from him. Like in the second where he is unsure, this message will give him like security, and then also like bundled with, okay, here's like 97% of people like actually kept the product, like that social proof again, and then you can like construct that as a hypothesis.
Okay. So let me get this straight. Let's do the other example. You just had the with the social proof. So if we insert social proof elements in this product page, then conversion rates or ARPU or whatever we want that will increase because humans are flock animals and they want to do what other people are doing. Would that be a hypothesis?
Yeah, well, not like varies, like obviously like not perfect, like some areas like in how it's written, but that would be like the main idea.
Okay. Awesome.
So yeah, like and that may be one other thing regarding hypothesis. Like everyone thinks like there's a way to do hypothesis right or wrong. Like as long as you have an hypothesis and like you try to reason why it's gonna work or not, it's better not having one.
And I could expect like if I were to, because there are a ton of like very, very good resources in terms of CRO. Like I can find great checklists and frameworks out there. And if I were a new e-commerce owner, I would perhaps just take these as like gospel and I would just implement it without even looking or thinking about it. Like you have some great resources as well. Like how do you actually advise people here? Because I think it might entice a lot of people just to take these frameworks and just implement them straight away, because it seems like they make sense, but they might not make sense for them. So like, how do you navigate that?
Yeah, so like funny, like I post a lot of stuff recently. So I do like 3 resources a week currently that I create for people. I'd say like 80% like instantly like implemented. That's like funny because like we're currently like I can't talk too much about it. But we're currently launching our like an own e-commerce shop. So it's like I get it why people are like, okay, I want to like implement everything. The way I would do it, like if you're just starting out, like do a lot of reading on like the CRO stuff, like come up with like a version 1 shop, implement everything that you think is going to work. Then focus on ads, bringing traffic to the shop. And then once it, like I said, like once it level of like 100K, 150K, maybe reiterate like after you talk to customers, after you did some research. But then once you're getting into the territory of like 300, 400, 500K a month, then you should start thinking about testing and not just like changing things up because you think they're going to work.
All right, but that's before we actually dive into some of the actual like cases and learnings, because I know we have a ton of them. Like, can you just give us like the some brief overview of how we actually do it? Like you mentioned, like doing the research, figuring out what to do, but now what do you need in terms of the tech stack? How long should they run for? And how do you actually analyze these results? Because I know like data can also be misleading. Like when you look at a broad aggregate, like you mentioned, if you go to Google Analytics, you don't really get to the sort of qualitative nuances. So what do you need? How long should they run, and how do you analyze it?
Yeah, so what do you need? First thing that you do, like once you have the idea, like obviously prioritize it. So you need like some like Excel Airtable to prioritize the ideas. That's the first thing. Then second thing, just like a project management tool where you like can communicate with the team. Because like what usually happens, once you have the idea, then you're gonna do a prototype or sketch it. So like you never should instantly code an idea. The reason for that is it takes like 20 times longer to change something up in the code. And usually what happens, like especially in bigger teams, like you have the different stakeholders, they're gonna be like, I don't like that, so you're gonna do the design first and then develop it. It's gonna save you time in the long run. Then how do you develop the tests? So A/B testing is quite simple. Like you have different tools. We use mainly Chameleon and A/B Lift. And pretty much what these tools do is like they are changing your website for like 50, like depending on what split you're like putting into it, but usually 50-50. So like person A sees like version A, person B sees like the edited version. And like everything else done is like you have to design, and then in the testing tool, you're pretty much like coding like a new variant that's gonna be like injected through some JavaScript and like manipulate the DOM. And then how to analyze. So that's something I'm definitely gonna send you a link like after the podcast. Before like you run a test, you need to calculate how long it's gonna run. So the mistake a lot of people do is like they do all these steps, like they design it, they code it like perfectly. Then they put like the button, okay, I'm gonna start the test now. And then after like maybe 10 days to see oh, okay, the tool says significant, and they stop and they're like, okay, now it's a winner. And that's like one of the biggest mistakes and most mistakes people do, because you did not do your statistics solidly. So that's like something called statistical power, and that's like if a test is underpowered, like the probability that like it is like the result that you see is false is like very high. So usually what you do is like same thing I said before. You're gonna ask yourself, okay, from a business perspective, what effect do I want to be able to measure? Then you go there and like you're like, okay, if I wanna optimize CR with that test, how many people will I need to have like 80%? Like if you're small, like we'd say use 80% confidence, 80% power, like as parameters, and then you're gonna be like, okay, you're gonna need 150,000 users per variant to be able to detect that effect. And then you're just gonna like let the test run for that specific amount of people or users that you have calculated, and then can analyze it. And now, once the test is done, it's like I know it's like such a long process. But then once the test is finished, you stop it like after you reach the amount of users you need. Then you go into the like either like if it's positive or negative or like inconclusive, you're gonna start to segment. You're gonna start to like dive into like new users, returning users, like is it a man, female customer, whatever. And we're gonna try to figure out, okay, what segments did the test like maybe impact more or less, and then you can start like to get some learnings out of that. I do have to like maybe also interesting like there's so much AI stuff that you can use. So for example, like we don't write hypotheses anymore. Like we've like built our model and like put all the data in from our hypothesis. Then also for like analyzing tests. So like all the data from GA is like getting sent also to a large language model to interpret. And then you get like a very big file, and that's gonna be like, okay, like if the test, let's say maybe for something with sizing for men and women on a product page is like differently, then it could be, okay, maybe women and men, like they both saw the same sizing guides, they both saw the same, but maybe like in reality, they're gonna like choose sizes like based on different parameters and stuff like that. And then what you do is you're coming up with follow-up ideas. So once you're like segmented the test, like either you implemented it or you rejected it. And then you just think about, okay, like what can I do with the data? How can I learn from it? How can I reiterate? And how can I do it better the next time?
Perfect.
I hope I didn't lose you somewhere.
No, I think I'm there, and I hope the listeners are as well. But it makes sense. Like it seems like very like it's very chronological in like when you say it, right? It makes sense. You start with an idea, and then you have to build a foundation, and you have to let it run for a significant amount of time. Then you need to gather up the data, and you have to make some sort of conclusion, and whether or not we actually want to proceed with the findings, or whether or not to revisit in another format, right? So that's basically it. But like what I'm curious of, while this test is running, whether or not it's 2 weeks or 2 months or 2 years, do you need to do something additional? Like, for example, let's say I'm running a test for 2 months. Do I want to like increase my spending on paid social so we get more traffic, so we get more learnings quicker? Or should I just like hands off and just like everything do itself like it used to be? Or
yeah, so maybe different things. That question has a lot of things actually to address. So the one thing, should you spend more on ads and traffic? Like obviously, like if your ads perform good, just spend on it. Like if the ROI is good. Like the test is just there like to squeeze out more of the existing traffic, and like if you bring new traffic in, like obviously that traffic's gonna get optimized as well if you have like good tests. Regarding the time, like if you're like scaling like crazy, or like you just found like some very good creatives, it's gonna be good for your testing program as well, because like I just said, the test runtime is dependent on how many users are on the test. So if you're gonna double your traffic, like that means pretty much your testing times are gonna like be cut in half, which is good. So you get more results faster, and you just can start more tests. So like for some of the companies you work with, we have like 30-40 tests running in parallel, which is like a lot.
But how do you keep them separate? Because I've heard something about, I'm a fairly rookie in terms of the CRO discipline when it comes to, at least compared to you, but like changing too many variables in one test, like how do you keep them separate to actually know whether or not it's that individual element moving the needle?
So every element that we test is an individual test.
Okay, good.
So like let's say the one test is on a product page and a product image. Then the second test is like maybe above the call to action, then something else like in the description.
Yeah.
You can target all these tests, and then like the thing, if you have 40 tests running, you can look at every change isolated again, because you just have like all these users are like getting through every like you have so many combinations, and in the at the end you can look into it. And there also are some studies. I don't know if it's Microsoft or Booking, like some of the really big companies, because they were like worried that they would have interaction effects. They never found some, and that like these companies are running tens of thousands of experiments a year. So
Wow. Okay. Okay, with that in mind, I think we should move on to some of the more practical stuff we have planned for today, because I know you have some tests from the big e-commerce Snox that you've mentioned a couple of times. So perhaps you can just go ahead and share your screen, and we can run through some of the most interesting ones.
Let's do that.
So first of all, Snox, for the Danish listeners who don't know Snox, what is Snox?
So Snox is one of Germany's largest underwear companies. They sell direct to consumer. They started, I think, in 2016, mainly on Amazon, and then they started to scale their online shop in 2019. And since then, they are, I don't know, like about 70, 80 million euros in revenue a year. Still growing. So that's what's public out there. A lot of growth. And yeah, they started out with socks and boxer shorts. Now I think they have like women's bras, they have like women's underwear, they have sportswear, they have shoes. So they like expanded a lot. And we've been optimizing their store for them since like pretty much, the beginning when they started to sell. Maybe like the one test, because like now you might be able to actually put like something behind that. So the one test we talked about is, okay, what happens if users are uncertain? Like for example, like what we figured out here, what we did, we put like through a Google event, we put on here, okay, how many times does a user like on a product page click between like the sizes, like let's say from 35 to 38 to 39 to 42 and then back. Then we saw like for that, for example, that the people were like bouncing off the product page. And then like that's the solution that I was talking about. Like in the moment when the people were like switching, like I think it's after the third time, we showed this note in here. Like what I said, that they the sneaker socks or like these socks are like commonly like kept at home and like not returned. And if they want to return, it's free. In that case, for example, that test had an uplift of 5.7%. Like that's on the total revenue, which is insane. Like if you just do the math on like what scale they are, it's a lot. Yeah, one thing that's actually quite interesting, because most people always tell you to keep everything tidy and like clean, and like don't like make it complicated for a user. So one thing that we had a long time for Snox, like if you look at the color swatches, the size select, and the quantity, it was like all like pretty much filtered in like drop downs, and like if you clicked on it, it was exposed. And then what we did see is like that people were like getting frustrated, like opening and closing it all the time. So we came up with a pretty simple test, and we're like, okay, what's gonna happen if we just like expose everything? Like it's looking like, yeah, honestly, like if you look at it like that, looks like to the eye like much worse. Like doesn't look like compelling. You're pushing the call to action way down. But also here, like super interesting. In the end, we had an uplift of like 3.7%. The hypothesis was like pretty easy as well. We thought that like since people were like frustrated when they had like to click on everything, like the more clicks, the more frustration it leads to. And that way they just like see better what the company has, and like they also see like everything faster and only have to click like once on everything.
That makes sense. It also makes it easier to identify like the other like color codes, and in terms of like, are you actually on the right one, right? It's much faster for the eye to draw the conclusion. So there might be like more brain power used, but then like, again, I think it makes sense. So very good, very good. 3.7% as well. That's
it's a lot, yeah. And like also for that one, like 95.13% confidence, which is very high. Let me go on to, oh, here we go. Yeah, that was super interesting, but like made a lot of sense. Like I'm gonna tell a little backstory to that. So that's what the product page for Snox looked like most of the time. I think we ran this test like only a year ago, something like that. And we always had like all these color swatches here. And when Snox started, they had like 4 different products. They had black, white, gray, and then like a mixed package of like the products. But as they grew, like started adding a lot of different colors. And as I added more colors, I had like special versions, everything. And one thing that's interesting, like happened, like saw it happen on the PDP is people like, especially mobile, like if you just look at that, if you're like scrolling down here, like you're not seeing how the product looks like. So what people did is like they clicked from, let's say, black to gray, and then they scrolled up and like tried to figure out, okay, what does it actually look like? Did the same for like a different color. And then after I did it like 2 or 3 times, it like would bounce off the page. Because it was just like frustrating. We're like, okay, what is this? Like, I don't want to like waste my time clicking on different colors, especially like if the loading speed is bad. So what we did then, instead of like color swatches, we added thumbnails of the real images. Like they already had them everywhere because like every product obviously had them. Like if you clicked on it, and that actually was one like of the best and like most significant tests we ran for Snox. Like we had a 2.8% uplift in revenue. Like in absolute numbers, like that was by far one of the best tests. It was like I think close to 6 figures additionally per month, which is crazy.
So like close to 100k euros
A month, yeah.
a month. Yeah, wow. But it makes sense. Like again, looking from it, like the other one is, I was really confused actually on the color codes, and I haven't obviously been there. But looking outwards and in, it makes sense. No other changes to the product pages, right? It was just the showcasing of the different colors, right?
Yeah, which makes sense. Like if you just like go into the user's like mind and head, like if he sees that,
yeah,
like it's so much easier to choose. You like, let's just like have a look at this one right here. Like you have like this rainbow colored one.
Yeah.
And if you go in here, like you're not really able to figure out what it's going to be like.
The old way of doing it, where you just have the circle and you just have the like the hex code. I think that's the norm, right? I feel like that's the way most people do it, right?
I would say like 90% of online shops have it that way.
And have you seen other cases where this is also the case, like where like showcasing the pack shots in the different color codes has actually proved to be significant? Because it seems like very like a surefire way to actually increase at least the user experience, right?
Yeah, so I do have to say, like, well, because we're running like a lot of these tests. So we have like a bunch of clients. So we probably ran this like type of test around 20 times, I'd guess. For fashion shops, it almost always works. Like if it's like actually a product that you need to see. If it's more or less something like that is technical or like that you don't use and like the looks are not that important to you, it's like less relevant. But like anytime you buy something that you're gonna wear yourself or you like need to be sure that it looks good, this almost always performed well.
Okay, that makes sense.
Well, let me go to. Oh, that's actually also an interesting one. I don't think like
navigation, right?
Yes, this is navigation, the search bar. So regarding the search, I do have to say this test is only going to be relevant to shops that have like a quite big product portfolio. Because like speaking of experience, if you only have like 2 or 3 different products, like people do not really need the search bar. Like it's just making it way too complex for them. So for Snox, like we always had it on the right top. Like everyone like could have used it and like just used the search if you wanted to. And then like obviously like that's like not rocket science. But if you look at the analytics data of how the people that use the search perform versus the ones that do not search, like it's always going to be higher. So our main idea was like, okay, we do know that if people use the search, they are way more likely to convert. So how can we like increase the search usage and get more people to search? And what we did, like pretty simple, we just exposed it. Like instead of having the icon here, we just like similar to like how Amazon does it, all the other big marketplaces, we put up like a bar and nudge the people like a little bit. Like in this case, it says, "What are you searching for?" Like very direct question. And same on mobile, and like expose it as well. And this test also increased overall sales by like 1.1%, which like again on that scale is like several hundred thousands of viewers a year. But super interesting one.
Yeah, for sure. What else we got? We got a lot of gold in this document. I think people will be.
Oh, that actually is. Yeah, that one's good. So yeah, another thing. I don't know how popular that is. You're based in Copenhagen, right? So Denmark. I don't know how popular like pay like installments or like paying by invoice. In Germany, like especially during COVID and after like the Russia war started, I don't like Germans are like very weird with shopping. They're like very like they have a lot of fear with shopping and like when spending money, especially like when the economy and like politics are going crazy. So one thing we actually noticed around 2022, beginning of 2022, like a lot of people were like hesitant to buy things and like didn't want to pay for it yet. And then very simple test that we also did. We just like placed PayPal, buy now and pay in 30 days. Very simple. Like when just added it towards like the call to action area, and when people clicked on it, they were like able to see the conditions and everything. Back then, it still was 0% interest. I think that changed by now. But also like just showing people the option like to pay later on the product page had like an uplift of 2.40%, which also is like quite crazy. Like we didn't like introduce PayPal as a new payment method. We just made it more visible.
I think that's a really good example of you mentioned initially, like you don't just follow the quantitative data, but also the qualitative. And that also means being in tune as what's happening in the sort of the broader spectrum of the world and not just on your own shop. And I think that's a quite good example as to that. We should definitely link to this this resource in the show notes. And perhaps we should round out with some websites I just found. I'm not sure, you haven't seen them yet. So it's a bit of a dry run on your end. Should we do
excited.
it?
Yes, let's do it. I'm gonna start with Noirfonce. So usually what I do, like when I analyze shops, I honestly always do it like mobile first, because we live in a mobile first world.
Okay.
But if I had to optimize for them right now, so first thing I would do, I would go into the analytics and check like the performance of the homepage. One thing that is sort of triggering me, not gonna lie, is this mid-season sale. Like good thing I can click on it, but I don't think it's like made very well. And then also, okay, let me see what they are. Like for example, now like the first impression I have is Schuh brand. Yeah. So here we go. So the first big problem I see right here, like just on the homepage, and like obviously it makes sense like to show the shoes that you have and everything, but at the first like let's say 5 seconds, like you don't realize they sell anything else. So which is bad, like because you want to have people know like when they go to your shop, okay, you also buy other things, because that's like also a little tip for upselling. Like the earlier you can like upsell people to outfits or like complete packs, like the better. And in this case, like you do not see it. Then also, yeah, like in fashion, what we found out, like usually text is irrelevant. The people want to see what it looks like. Then I quite like this, like that they have like the different categories, but also like little bit, yeah. Like if you go to the menu, like I do not like the structure. Like you go to sneakers, and you have man, then you have woman. I'd rather have it like, okay, in the first step you decide, okay, are you like a male customer or female customer? So like you can tailor fit it. Yeah, like for example, same here. Like I come to the page again, and like like this banner is just like unproportionately big, and it does not even have a call to action on it.
It doesn't really say much. So you would rather have, for example, like with the snogs, you have a man and a female, then you have to choose where you want to go, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So you help people navigate towards the right place to go.
Yeah. So that's the first thing I probably would test for them, is like just like also like the entire navigation. So it would be a big test. Like have the homepage and like have people decide if they're male or female. And then also like the entire navigation. Like let's say I go to brands and I go to Adidas. Well, how do you know like if that's like let's say I'm like a female now, how do you know like if all these shoes or products like are male or female? So based on the size, that probably is a male product.
Yeah, but you have to guess.
Yeah, you have to guess, and that's super hard. I mean, like it's not like, because we are working with like similar brands that are like on the sneaker industry and everything. So like the unisex thing is big, but still, what we did find out that like people still like to shop like by the gender. So that's the first thing.
It's funny when you like, I'm getting so used to like the hover effect when you hover over sneakers, like, and if it doesn't hover, like I can't see it like interact with me, then it like look almost weird. But I'm not sure if it's even best practice, but I'm just so used to it, you know?
The hover effect honestly depends on what you show. So like that isn't like, that's okay, but like not the worst thing. Then you picked that shit. Like I probably could come up with
let's go, Samuel. Give him hell.
I hope like if these guys are like listening, please don't take it like personal. But there are like so many things you could do better on this page. So the very first thing, buy with PayPal. This button, you see what happens. Like you instantly getting redirected to PayPal. We've never seen that work better. You want to reassure that if you actually like buy it now, then like everything's gonna be all right. And that's like just a step too much. Like usually people first want to like compare and put stuff into their cart and then decide what they want to buy.
So it's too early. It's too early that they're being met with that, right? It just adds friction.
Yeah, it adds friction. And like I honestly do not know like who came up with the concept of putting buy with PayPal, like buy with Apple Pay onto the product pages. We have never, like, I'm not kidding, we have never seen a test that was positive. Having like these buttons on here. So yeah, definitely would remove that here. Then the other thing, I just told you, like the most important thing for fashion stores is like the sizing. Now, what size do I take? First of all, that's a woman's shoe again, I think. That's not a man's shoe. So like, again, like now I would need to try and find a shoe that's suited for men actually. But yeah, that just shows like how, again, a woman's shoe, like I'm not even able, like as a man, like now you would have lost me because I don't find a product. But then like even here, like there's no size guide. Like how in the world should like, or like not even a size conversion, like that is European sizes. But let's say like, for example, me, I'm shopping in US sizes usually. I have no freaking clue what European size I need. So that again, like you lost me right here again. Then 24 to 72 hour delivery service. I have no idea what that is. Like maybe just put an icon here and like explain what exactly a delivery service is. Like, is it gonna be at my house in 24 to 72 hours? Or does it mean like I order and I'm getting like 3 days of delivery service and customer support to understand like where my product is? Authentic product, well, that's fair. Low stock. Also
how does that actually
fair.
work in like creating urgency? I've always wondered whether or not like e-commerce business actually uses as a leverage, and it's not even true, or is it actually connected to the inventory that they actually have, or
Yeah, so what we found out, like if it's true, it works amazing. And I mean, like most serious businesses are like showing their true stock. If you're a dropshipper and you only want to buy, like you make people buy once and never again from you, you can trap them, but like I wouldn't do it. And it's like really unethical. Like it unfortunately, like scarcity and urgency are like the two things that almost always work. Like it's scary, like how good they always work. But yeah, then I can keep going. Like also like similar products. Like let's say, okay, this size is sold out, or like I don't even know like what size I need. There's like no option for me like to keep browsing, and like there's no option for me like to now see maybe different Adidas shoes that are black, have white stripes and like a white sole. And I bet you like 50, if I go in here, like I'm definitely gonna find different products.
right? So they should recommend similar products that are in stock for you, right?
Yeah, 100%. Then also there are no pictures where people actually are wearing the shoes. And like again, one of the most important things in fashion is like you want to try and see if you would like the product on you. So it's like also something we tested, like putting, like we call them mood shots. It's like how when people wear the products, like working amazingly good in fashion as well.
Yeah. So put the products into context instead of just having the pack shots, right?
Yeah, 100%. And then like, if we keep going, like I'm just gonna you have like 1, 2, 3 different call to actions. Now you have this here, like I think like not enough people are actually thinking about that. Discount codes calculated at checkout. Now, if you use PayPal Express or Google Pay Express, you're gonna skip the discount step, and you sometimes are not able to apply a discount. So yeah, to all the people that are using Express checkouts, like that quite often happens, and the conversion rates are gonna dip because like if you run sales and your customers cannot they do not see where to like put the discounts in, that's bad. And also like you never should have 3 different call to actions. Then I'm just gonna ask you, have you ever like added a note to an order online?
No, very rarely at least.
Yeah, like I don't get it because like that's also like and then once you go in here, well, that's the new Shopify checkout. You barely can do anything in here. So that is like
quite standard, right?
Yeah, that's very standard. Like that's good. But then in here, like Oh, now they actually have social proof. They have Trustpilot.
Should that
Like,
be higher up? I mean, get more
yes.
valuable real estate, right? It's like very far.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, like probably for 60% of the time, like going through that shop, I thought, okay, are these guys drop shippers? Like, is this shop legit or not? Like I would not have bought from this shop until now, because like now it's UK, wow, that's actually quite crazy. Like 4.7, 3,154
Yeah, that's
reviews.
good. That's good. Okay, so what was some of the biggest takeaways? There was a lot of friction on the product pages. There was a lot of like confusion in terms of the checking out, like the too many different like payment options. Social proof should be higher up. What else did I miss?
Just complexity. Like this shop is
Yeah,
like if you like,
navigation as well. You mentioned
yeah,
navigation. Yeah.
navigation is, sorry to say it like that, but it's crap.
Okay,
Like
that's
it's
okay.
like there's no real like there's you don't enjoy like shopping and browsing here. It's like very transactional. Like if you
Okay.
exactly know what you want, it could be okay. But if you want people like to return and like browse and maybe buy even more stuff, that's is not well done.
Okay, let's try the other one. This was a French site I can see. I'm not sure what the other one is from, but let's just go
Yeah.
like five minutes rapid fire. Tell me whatever you feel like saying.
So the first thing that I already like is like if I click on the header bar, they have everything explained.
I had no idea you actually pressed that. I wouldn't necessarily have actually pressed that because they're not usually like interactive, right?
Yeah, that's very rarely. I mean, it's like you could do it better. Like that people actually know like if they can click it or not. Like I do agree. Like that's actually the first optimization they can do. But the fact that they do it is amazing.
Yeah,
Also,
I
stuff
agree.
like students get 10% off. Very prominent. Then one thing again that I would test here is like instead of having this homepage right here, I would try to have like women's, men's, and kids. Like just a very like one pager and like you select what you are shopping for. I'm just gonna go to Mans really quick. And now I have to figure out, are they all selling? Okay, so it's a shoe online shop as well, right? Like only
Yeah.
shoes. Yeah. Okay. Um, so now I mean it's like a very simple and boring big collection page,
Yeah.
to say it like that. So what they could do here is like just like have more filters and like make it easier to like shop for things. Like maybe have like a quiz or like a guided shopping assistant that's like, okay, what are you looking for? Are you looking for like daily shoes? Are you looking for shoes to go to the beach? Are you looking for nice shoes that you can wear to the office? Like just like try and figure out and help the person what he needs. Because they have a bunch of shoes. They have, if you look here, they have 1,600 products. But like a user does not have the time to like go through 1,600 products. So that's like sort of your shop like in the first place to really like show you what products they have. Like maybe actually funny example like why that's important. Like just recently, like 3 weeks, I went to a shoe store in Italy. Like I didn't have the intention of like buying anything. Went in there, and like the woman was like, "What do you usually wear?" Like she showed me like a bunch of different shoes, and then I was like I've never seen Levi's shoes in my life before. And they were like 50 years, and I was like, that's like too good of a deal like not to take. So I bought them. But that's like same in an online shop. Like if you like are able to show the customer like something that he's might gonna like or the user, like there's a likelihood it's gonna purchase. And like right now, the way it's done here is just like you're getting
All
like
over the
over
place.
all over the place. Yeah, I mean you can filter, but it's like also okay. Let's say like the user's only gonna find what he already like buys. Like he's not gonna explore any new things.
Okay. Can you try to go to Adidas again, like you were before,
Yes.
and then just take one random product? I just want to see something.
Okay, I'm gonna take that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that is okay. They have a good product page. So that's good. Like you have how the product looks like worn. That is very good.
Oh, and they also
Um,
have the recommendations in the beginning or in the end, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
other products you may like.
Yeah.
That is very good. Recommended for you again. Delivery and returns. That is
So I have a question. When it
yes.
comes to, and I'm not sure that shoes is the best like category to actually ask this question, but when it comes to describe or the product descriptions, right? There's an old telltale in advertising that the more you tell, the more you sell. Basically, the more info you can provide about a certain product, the better. In other words, the more details, the more descriptions, the better or longer descriptions you can make, usually the better. Is that also the case when it comes to like CRO in general? Like, do you want to provide a lot of information, or for example, when it comes to sneakers, it's just the picture doing the talking?
I mean, if you don't put any words on a website, it's not gonna sell. So definitely words like are important. But I think it depends. Like for sneakers and fashion, like it's more of like what it looks like, and then the words that you use to describe the product, like they should be short probably. And like like if you're gonna like create a story like how this shoe or like that maybe could work, like how legendary this shoe is, but like you're not gonna do that for like 1,600 products. Like it's also like the thing that you have to think about with zero. Okay, like how much text can I actually do? Because like if you had to do it for 1,600 products, like not gonna be possible. But yeah, like you should definitely like use copy and like test with copy. But in the like especially in the fashion again, like the pictures are making the talking. So like probably makes more sense to spend time on optimizing the pictures and what they look like.
Cool, that makes sense.
But let's get back to like media sizing. Like that's something they are doing good. So I don't know if you know like Fitfinder. That's like probably one of the most known and like best solutions for like sizing. Like all the big marketplaces like Zalando, About You, ASOS, they're using them.
Okay.
So
and that's
yeah,
like a widget or a plugin that you
yeah,
connect to Shopify?
it's an external database. It is very expensive, I'm not gonna lie. I think they started like 40,000-50,000 euros a year. But like if it's gonna return, like if it's gonna reduce the returns you have, it's good. But like for example, what they do, like find the right size, you're gonna ask you, okay, how often do you plan on wearing these shoes? More than once a week, like maybe it's a daily. Then it could be, okay, I wear Nike, I wear sneakers, I wear 8.5 to 9. Then I'm gonna be like, okay, I've narrowed. Like they ask you all these things, and that's gonna be like, okay, based on that, like you have a 74% chance that you will be happy with size 42. Then you go to continue shopping. That's where they missed one opportunity now. After you could like put everything in, they should pre-select 42.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And also, similar how we did it for Snox, like just having everything exposed so the user can click on the size. And then something I'm missing here is shipping conditions. So shipping, returns, what's happening. Like if I want to return it, like I've seen nothing here.
So like the 4 or 5 bullets that's usually there, right? You get free returns, 2-3 days delivery, X, Y, and Z, right?
Yeah, just like the basics. Like Amelia shop is like already like a lot better than the previous one, but they're missing out on so many things. Like for example, in the card, like what you usually want to do, you want to confirm the user and his choice. Like you could like on top of your bag, it could be like great choice. That's gonna be your new like favorite shoe that you're gonna rock every single, or like just something around these lines. Like to confirm that he's like doing a good choice, or like I think these shoes were in low stock. Then in the card, you also could be like, hey, better be fast to check out. We cannot reserve your card for you. Or like products in high demand, we cannot reserve. Like you don't even have to tell, okay, it's like only available like 2 times. You can be like, okay, like not able to reserve it. Then again, like what payment methods do they give you? Like for example, here they would lose me because they do not offer Amex. But like these small things, like until the last step, you don't know, okay, can I pay with like what I usually want to pay with? So that's a little bit of a downside here again.
Okay. I think like I think I can keep throwing websites at you, and you can dive deep into every single one of them. But I think we should try to wrap it up. But I think it was a great dry run. So thank you so much, Samuel, for going through them. And the funny thing is that actually the first site that you saw was actually my favorite. And I've only glanced through them in like 1 minute each, so I haven't really done the research properly, to be honest. But the thing is, like, I think to me it appealed most visually. It was much more clean. There was not too much friction visually, but the other one, it looks like very like almost dropshippy in terms of like there was a lot of colors and they were like a bit more weird. There was like a picture of a baby in the bottom. Like it looked a bit weird to me. But like in terms of CRO, it actually had much more of the best practices, right? Profile. So that was a kind of an eye opener to me.
Yeah, maybe like funnily to that. I used to be. I mean, I love aesthetics. Like, don't get me wrong, but like I used to love it like with online shops and websites. Like since we're doing like CRO for 4 or 5 years now, like every time like a test is like not approved because like it is not beautiful enough, or like it's not like it doesn't like hit the aesthetics, it hurts. Because like just from like, I mean, there are like some brands like that's like all the luxury brands, but like even they like sometimes they take aesthetics to a level that is like not user centric anymore, and then you just like, instead of like, for example, buying from that brand, you go to a marketplace that's easier to navigate. Yeah, you definitely like, aesthetics are important. Like it shouldn't look shit, but like the tags that like, there's a reason like why Amazon is like, I think like Amazon is one of the like ugliest websites out there probably, but it's one with the highest, like probably one of the highest conversion rate.
What about Temu? Temu is also getting up there.
I love Temu. Like from a zero perspective, insane. I've never seen a company that had like, I mean, they're like completely crushing Europe right now. Wait, let me show you like some things really quick. Like I think that actually might be very interesting for
Go for it. Go for it.
But yeah, like now what you see, for example, okay, ships from Temu. So like since I'm in Italy right now, like for example, what they do is they promote that they are working together with the Italian Post, like Post, the official one. And then also like if you look below it, like everyone knows if you order from Temu, you're gonna get it straight from China. They don't try to hide the fact. They exactly show you how long it's gonna take, like for the product to arrive. And then you're like, okay, well, like for example, in that case, 11 euros. Like honestly, if I have to wait 10 days, like so be it. Like if I have to pay like 50 euros at another shop, then it sells exactly the same thing. But they are crazy. Like also if you look at the menus, like how they do it, it's a complete different way. Like 5-star rated bestsellers, early summer offers, etc. It's insane. And then also like these lightning deals, sales engine, the reviews. I think around like a month ago I did an entire breakdown of Temu, and I found I think like 200 tactics they used like on 2 pages, which is insane.
Do you have that? Can we share that as well in the show notes?
Yeah, I have the homepage.
Okay, perfect. I'll put it in the show notes. But I think that might actually be a really interesting page to like do a thorough dive on, because the page, the product page you just showed me, like I could see that it was photoshopped. Like the woman who was wearing the shirt, she wasn't even wearing it. It was just photoshopped on her. But like that's another story to tell. But Samuel, thank you so much for being here. It was a pleasure to have you. And I think perhaps tell the people where they can find you. Obviously, LinkedIn is a very big channel for you, but.
Yeah, like thanks for having me. Yeah, like if people want to have more serial content, they probably should follow me on LinkedIn or X. Recently started posting on there as well. And yeah, if they ever have any questions, just be free to hit me up. Like I'm trying to help as many people as I can and try to answer as deep as I can. It's like these podcasts, like you only touch the like surface of the things. I think you like figured that out as well. So yeah, be free to hit me up.
Awesome.
What's fun being here.
Tusind tak, fordi du lyttede med til denne episode af Let's Be Frank. Der kommer nye episoder hver eneste uge, så hvis du ikke går glip af næste episode, så hop ind på YouTube, Spotify og subscribe. Og hvis du er nysgerrig på Franklin, hvor Nico og jeg kommer fra, så går du op ind på hifranklin.com for at læse mere. Vi ses i næste episode af Let's Be Frank.